Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ivan Rodrigues, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you today. As a tsunami of disruptions rising from the global economic slowdown and the COVID-19 pandemic inundated global economies, the Times of India Group has taken the responsibility of rewiring our understanding of a world in flux through the India Leadership Series, a series of interaction with stalwarts across industries spanning over 60 days in collaboration with ServiceNow. Today's manufacturing roundtable titled Rising India, Is This the Best Time Ever to Be in India? Will focus on immediate challenges, opportunities, and decisions required to steer the sector out of choppy waters with an aim to revitalize one of the greatest economies in the world. Doyens from the sector will deliberate on what it will take to not just navigate through the crisis, but emerge victorious in a new world order. It is our belief that the words of wisdom from the respected members of the Roundtable will help many peers to rethink and rework their strategy to sail through these challenging times. And so without any further ado, it's an honor and privilege for me to welcome the members of this roundtable. Josh Fouger, Country Head and Managing Director, Rising Stars Mobile, a Foxconn Technology Group company. Welcome, Josh. Parag Satpathy, Managing Director, Bridgestone India. Welcome, Parag. Ramashankar Pandey, Managing Director, Hela India. Welcome, Ramashankar. Shekhar, Khanolkar, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, DCM Shriram. A warm welcome to you too, Shekhar. Elisha Harrington, Senior Director, Chief Innovation Office, ServiceNow. Welcome, Elisha. And Venugopal Arkot, Senior Director, Solution Consulting, ServiceNow. Welcome, Venugopal, or Venu as he is fondly known. This session will be moderated by Himanshu Vats, Consulting Editor, The Economic Times. Himanshu, over to you.
Thanks, Ivan. Thanks for setting the ball rolling. And I really admire the Times of India Group's initiative to have this series in trying to restart and accelerate the economy. I think we are in very exciting times. There is, of course, the overhang of the pandemic, but I think the pandemic has drowned to an extent some very, very exciting things that the government has done on the policy level. The way it used the opportunity last year to introduce path-breaking reforms, do things which really required bold decisions, remove so many policy bottlenecks and support industry in a very strong and encouraging manner. There is, of course, a lot of work to be done. But we are seeing, many transformative things like the very rapid adoption of digital technology, the way even the common man and the street vendor is using digital payments. There is a growing view in the world about, how supply chains need to be diversified and taken into new countries. And I think there's a great chance for India and entrepreneurs, both in India and outside, to seize this opportunity. To start with your views, can I ask Elisha to set the ball rolling, in terms of what should be the leadership thoughts to improve service quality and revamping of manufacturing value chain?
Absolutely. So it almost starts and ends with the customer. So I might just start about talking about customer service operations when it comes to, some of the manufacturing customers that we have globally and just provide you a bit of insight. first of all, connecting sales teams, connecting services across what we call enabling servitization and what the industry is calling servitization. And that's really just giving manufacturers a visibility of, customer usage of products, looking at how we can provide revenue generating after sales service and support for manufacturers. So connecting all of these departments and functions together has been really important for manufacturers to really address some of the customer requests that are coming in, some of the issues, and really freeing up resources to actually do the job that they need to do and focus on more strategic customer needs, right? So whether it's connecting the front office sales and customer to the middle and back office, which is quality engineering, factory production planning, et cetera, we're seeing across the board that being able to connect all of this in one single pane of glass is really important, not just for collaboration, but also for reporting and just being able to see a visibility across dealers, distributors, retailers, resellers, and all of the networks sort of involved along the value chain of a manufacturer. An example I would probably give is we have a global electronics manufacturer, a customer based out of the US, and, they're connecting all of their systems and, legacy infrastructure together so that they have that visibility. And it's showing that they're not only able to see sort of uplift in the ways that they can offer new services beyond just their immediate manufacturing product, but they're also able to support things like field service and ensure that they maintain visibility across the usage of their product and the after sales services. So, we're seeing this huge shift in terms of, being able to provide a world-class experience for distributors and the wider, broader network for any manufacturer. So I'll just set the tone there if anyone wants to follow.
Yeah. Thanks, Elisha. Can I turn to Josh? Your company's, its investment in India was seen by many in the government and industry as a very high point to attract this kind of investment in India. What are your thoughts on, how the global supply chains should be, and of course, the timing of the investment, this current phase in India, is it the time for people to invest?
Thank you, Manshu. And I think, as Elisha said, I think global value chains, are reevaluating. A lot of them are going through what I like to say a reconstruct, deconstruct, sort of time phase there. And in India, what I personally think is that it's a time of leadership. And on one end, I think we as leaders have to give hope. I think, yes, we have to take care of the safety situation, which is currently prevailing, and also take care of the communities. I think so that is the hope aspect of things. The second bit is, of course, managing the time horizons, because capital investments have very long cycles, and it's very, very important we're prudent about doing it. Not to talking about investment, I think in a country like India, which is sort of the country of this century, we will see progress. We may see setbacks, short-term setbacks, but it is a country to invest in this century, right? So no stop, right? I think in investment is I think the motto the industry has taken in the electronics space. I think because this is a global play. Electronic supply chain is a global play, and it is not isolated. And a lot of these decisions have been set in stone, and it is undergoing a cycle. People say China +1, but there's always been a +1 journey. In this story. So the question is. I really think at this point in time, with all the promotions with India is pushing, is what should be the value addition we're going to drive, and I think is it just the finishing operations? Is that the only case here, or are we going to look at R&D? Are we going to look at multiple tiered supply chain here? I think really is the question. That said, I think there is the capital investment cycle, but I think we, at this time of uncertainty of demand and a bit of volatility there, we have to manage our cash flow. And I think that's something which all of us are focused to manage the cash properly, because we do want to go, or we do want to come out of this pandemic with sort of a reasonable war chest to sort of take the opportunities which will be presented to ourselves, not just in India, but in global. Back to you, Himanshu.
Okay, thanks. Parag, let me ask you this. As Josh said, it's a time to manage cash flows and, so that you have a reasonable war chest when you come out of it. And I think there are good signs of, if not coming out of it, coming to a much better situation. You think India would be able to be a global hub in sectors? There's been a lot of talk of pharma, there's been talk of renewables, but if a country gets its act together and gives the right environment and support, it should not be just one or two sectors. What are your thoughts?
Indeed. First of all, very happy to be here as a part of this panel discussing this important topic. And I'll come on to answer your question, Himanshu, or at least give you my thoughts on that topic. But let me start by saying that this COVID pandemic, while a very catastrophic event, has had a bit of a silver lining. It has been such a shakeup, not just to the economy, but to life as general, that we have all been forced to reevaluate the priorities in life. And we have all, as a result of that, become more able to adapt. And I think that's a very important thing. And hopefully we'll talk about this a bit later in the discussion, that the whole transformation, the digital transformation that we are seeing, for it to happen, there is a shakeup like this, which was needed, and it was provided by natural causes. And you will see towards the end of the pandemic, companies, individuals, governments are much more ready to adopt new technologies than they would have been otherwise. So that is a theme that I'd like to come back on. Coming to your specific question about, can India develop to be a global base for exporting, depending on a few clusters? I think definitely the base ingredients are in place. We are a large country. We have abundance of technical talent. Ostensibly, the cost of labor is very, very competitive, even more competitive than some of the other emerging markets. And the world is looking for the second China, right? The world is looking for a second base. So the macro ingredients or the macro trends are all lined up. So is it a given then that India will become such a base, and which sectors could benefit? I think it's not a given. There are still some things to be done. These things need to be done by the whole ecosystem. So we need the right governmental support. We need the right focus from individual corporates and multinationals, as well as Indian companies. And then we need the right mindset to develop among the people. From the government side, I think there has been a very clear will or intention, at least. And I think some of the recent changes that we have seen, or the new policies we have seen, favor this. The PLI is a very good example. I mean, that will incentivize companies to manufacture in India and grow their exports. That's a very good example. Similarly, we should not underestimate the simplification of business that was brought about by GST. We still need to address some things like a more progressive labor law, land law, and even power costs. So those are the things I think which have been recognized and are being discussed at the governmental levels. Probably more relevant for us as a group to discuss is, what can we do as corporates, right? What do we need to do? And I think a very important thing, first of all, is to have a very, very clear mindset to be focused on quality and investment in innovation and technology. I think Josh touched about those aspects as well. Traditionally, some of the industries in India have had a jugaad mentality, if I may call it. I think that is not something which is going to take us far in the global markets. We need to develop the brand image of Indian products as a high quality. I mean, that's the base of becoming an export hub. Japan did it, Korea did it, China is following. So India also needs to go on that path. And secondly, as a country, as corporates, we need to invest a lot more of our resources into technology, into R&D, so that we are staying ahead of the curve. I mean, these things are within the hands of corporates and are being supported by the government. I think if India is ever to become a hub, and that can be for multiple industries, then we need to work collectively as an ecosystem.
You raised some very important issues. I think all the positives, the size of the market, the workforce, everything. I mean, I've seen these positives for a few decades now, but the thing is how to move to the next level. Also, quality is a very, very important issue. And somehow, even in low technology areas, like a lot of consumer electronics, the foreign suppliers continue to dominate. Can I turn to Shekhar? Your company, your group is one of the old, seasoned ones in India, and it has seen it all. What are your thoughts on this discussion from your perspective from India?
Yeah, so, thanks, Himanshu, for this opportunity. As a DCM group, definitely we have been in India for more than 100 years now and have seen many cycles, ups and downs, many policy changes. And we have very strong manufacturing base in India in various manufacturing sectors. So from that perspective, definitely when we look at manufacturing in India, we feel there is a real good opportunity, which this unfortunate event which has brought in now, where you find the interest rates are pretty low. Banks are willing to lend money. So from that perspective, there are good this thing. Government is willing to support. Government is giving the PLI schemes for various products. And I think this is a time where we, as Parag said, as industries, have to really think that what is that we can do during this economy and try to see that we can be a part to creation of the jobs, which is something which has really got affected during this pandemic. More than jobs, using the democratic dividend what we have in India, also the reskilling. There are a lot of people who have lost job during this pandemic, and this is also opportunity for reskilling those people into the manufacturing sector. Again, the technology, use of technology is also important part of it. Elisha talked about it. So it is not only the customer experience. We can talk the entire value chain into the business. How we can get digital IoT, how we can optimize the production, how we can use the data to improve our what we talk about quality of service for our customers. So there are a lot of areas where there are opportunities for growth in India, and I think this is the right time to really look at investments. In fact, a group like us, we already announced investment more than 2,500 crores in the last 2 years during this pandemic to grow into various businesses. So I think from that perspective, I feel it's a great opportunity. But I also talk about the global hubs. And traditionally India in 80s and 90s were talking of services sector like IT. Then we talked of pharma sector. As a API sector, as a growth sector. But these are not the only sectors where as a manufacturing we can grow. You talk of any sector like toys, you can talk of textiles, garments, you can talk of electrical goods. You just mentioned that even the small items, we don't get right quality out here. I think there are many areas where we have world-class production of some of the polymers like polypropylene, polyethylene, and those kind of things, the scale. So I don't think there are any issues in those kind of things. Technology is not an is area of concern in these kind of areas. So there are many areas where India can grow. And if I just add one more point here, with the pharma industry, in API industry in India grew in late 90s and early 2000s is also because of the global supply chain. It is not that we as a pharmaceutical companies in India were manufacturing all the raw materials into India. So it was the integration of the global supply chain between, say, China, India, and other countries. And so that was whether it was intended or unintended, that's the way it was really working for us. So again, so the reality is that there has to be a global value chains and there has to be a global play into all these things, and that will really help the Indian manufacturing sector to grow.
Right. Thanks, Shekhar. Now, I will have a few specific questions which I'll ask all the panelists. But before that, Venu, you want to react to the discussion so far?
Yeah, I think interesting perspectives from all the speakers here. What I would like to emphasize is in terms of the way we work, the workplace and the workforce is going through a different dimension of changes. And it's important we recognize that. And I hear that there is a definitive recognition of the change that is happening. And secondly is that when we looked at the eyes of different CEOs, what are those imperatives that can make this change happen in a rapid manner is in terms of velocity. The speed of change is much more accelerated. So how do we make those changes happen in a faster manner? The second imperative is in terms of experience. And I think very nicely put, experience is not just about customers. It's about employees, it's about stakeholders and every other partner ecosystem. How do we make this one single community thrive? That's the experience part. And last but not the least is intelligence. How do we bring in automation as one of the core themes in terms of continually improving these aspects of different processes that are built rapidly, as well as experience that are bringing in, whether it's mobile or chatbot, and much more intelligent manner. Whether it's supply chain or whether it is in manufacturing in India with smart manufacturing and connected enterprise that Elisha mentioned, or global customers of India where bringing in shared services where connection makes much more importance rather than silos. These are fundamental imperatives that we need to look into and redefine the whole workplace and workforce.
Thanks. Thanks for your perspective. Now, one of the things the government has been talking about much before the pandemic, and particularly this government, is on ease of doing business, and that's a very important thing for any entrepreneur. That there should not be obstacles. India's ranking in the global ease of doing business hierarchy has been going up, but let's hear from each panelist what has been their experience. There's one thing to tick the right boxes and get up the hierarchy, but on the ground, how much easier it is and how much easier should it get? Shekhar, why don't we start with you on this and go around?
So if you see the changes which are happening from the ease of doing business perspective in last couple of years have been good. Those, because very clearly there is a huge intention from the government and there's a vision in terms of bringing about this change, which would help on ground level for the manufacturing companies, or for that matter, any business to really improve his contribution. So from that perspective, I can definitely say that there is a huge improvement over past many years. Is it enough? The answer may be no. That there has been a lot of more, because the way we are looking at the industry where we want to go, we have dream of 5 trillion kind of economy in 2025. Are we doing enough to reach to that level? Then we need to look at each and every aspect which really affects the entrepreneurs to really be there to start their business or to grow their business. I think there's a larger vision which is there, which is good. Okay. Vision is getting translated down to various levels. Probably if it percolates a little more down at the absolutely ground level, I think we can see changes out here, because it's a huge machinery. It takes time to move, but it moves very fast. So I think we are very optimistic about it, that the changes would definitely help the industry.
Thanks, Shekhar. Can I turn to Mr. Ramashankar Pandey? Shekhar talked about sea changes. Do you also see them? And also, I'd like your perspective on, the global supply chain issues which were discussed a little earlier. Over to you, Ram.
Yeah, now you gave me the permission to unmute. Great. Thanks, Mr. Vaj. Yeah, so I think I wanted to pitch in the first dialogue also, and coming back to what we just discussed. The major thing, as Jose also said, regarding the cash flow management, I think it's a balancing act for us as of now. We are into a crisis, which I think for all of us, it's both life and the livelihoods. I personally am just recovering from COVID, the whole family. And one thing which is very good learning is how you act with your muscles and with your disease, is very similar to what we do in our companies. We can't stop our activities, because if you have such a crisis, you can't go into a situation of limbo. To restart will be extremely difficult, because it's a supply chain. We all are interdependent. If one of my suppliers says he's not coming back with the small child parts, I think we'll not be able to supply to the complete value chain. Now, This is where the cash flow balance is very important. And we all struggled for this in the first wave also, and we are struggling even this time, which hit us so bad, especially if you look at, we have multiple business segments, the consumer business where we have the dealers and distributors. I think they are going through very, very bad phase. And we need to support them. And then our suppliers on tier 2, tier 3 are very small suppliers in automotive. The tier 1s actually support them to come up. So we are facing such a huge dilemma, but we have to go on, both for the mental region that and also for the businesses are going on concern, we need to support it. But having said that, when it comes to I will relate it to the ease of doing business now, how much current government policy encourages us to come out of these kind of crises with flying colors. I think the biggest hurdle for us is there was no support, at least to secure the employment of people. We did on ourselves, it's fine. Some companies could do it, some companies could not do it. Unlike other countries, there should have been a direct support to employees, which did not happen. Of course, that time is over now. I think companies have learned to live with it. Look at the labor policies of today. And you saw the migrant crisis in the first wave, you saw in the second wave also. Whatever we started at ACMA, we all leaders started shouting, telling as much as possible that everybody is protected, but they did not believe us. The blue collars did not believe us. They started walking out. Now, why that happened? That together, it's a failure of leadership that we were not able to, bring that confidence and trust in them. And that goes back to our policies and ease of doing business. And the third thing is the value of the contract in our company, between supplier and us. Between us and our OEMs, we are not safeguarding due to judiciary, or I don't know why we are not able to do it, but our ranking is so low in terms of validity of contracts because you can't work alone. You have a supply chain and you are dependent on these legal contracts. And these contracts today, if you ask me, I'm running this company at least from last 14 years. I have no confidence, other than mediation, other than somehow managing it. If I have to go on litigation, I don't think that's a way forward. So having no faith in that judiciary, which will come to our rescue, when we went for delisting, the second date, the gap was 8 years in Supreme Court, 7 years. Tariq pe tariq, So I think these are the three areas that when governments want to support, they must support in a cash flow when we are really running the cash flow issues, whenever any crisis comes. So this is one area. Second is the labor law. Our labor law should be such a, most of us have got contract laborers, 80%. Why we can't have a same level? Why we don't have that courage? Because we are not protected. We can't, even the business goes down, we have to keep them. So this labor law reform is second, and the biggest one is the contract validity. So whether we do a judicial reform, I don't know how we will achieve that, but looks a distant possibility. If that happens, we have a peace of mind, because as CEO, the biggest heart attack always we have is we are not protected. We are not protected with our tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Even from the OEM side, we are not protected. We are not protected even sometime on our IP levels. That are we able to secure our IP where we are putting so much of engineering and D&D? So that will be my submission, Mr. Watts, that if I have to pick one in each of doing business, which can make a big difference to all of us, will be the enforcement of contract.
You've raised some very important issues and you've been very frank about it. I think sanctity of contracts is something both Indian and foreign businesses really want. Coming back to ease of doing business, I was reading an interesting interview the other day about it was a trade commissioner from Australia, a lady from Austrade. And one of the points she made in that interview was that for many Australian businesses, perception about India is the same as it was for them. For India is India 15 years ago. And a lot of these changes that have happened, they have not gone into the perception of the Australian business people. Elisha, I think you should come in on this. How do you feel?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to visibility and transparency in the global supply chains, which will help, various markets start to see some of the insights and some of the, really incredible things that a market like India is actually doing and how they orchestrate all of this global, products and services worldwide. I think when it comes to, I think we touched on a couple of the panelists were talking about contracts, we're talking about ease of business, we're talking about everything sort of distills down to looking at enablers that help these markets like Australia, again, do business with countries like India. Some of the ways I've seen, some of the evolution come out is really around things like blockchain and smart contracts. So, for example, if we can use automation and smart contracts, we can actually have transaction protocols we actually have ease of doing cross-border payments. We have ease of doing cross-border operations between, say, two different countries that have very different setups. And we have, more importantly, visibility across where we can see insight into all of that quality assurance and all of that manufacturing insight that needs to happen along the way in terms of where is the origin of, the suppliers coming from. So a lot of these high, I would say high quality assurance countries like Australia with, really big, I suppose, legal requirements, really stringent policies around quality assurance. We're looking to countries like India and other countries where we need to see that transparency as well. And that can be enabled through automation, enabled through blockchain, enabled through smart contracts. And, giving this technology, being able to see an insight or a sort of a digital lens into their manufacturing is definitely the way forward. Absolutely.
Parag, you want to comment on this?
I will not be able to comment on the blockchain technology because that's fairly new and not something I've got my head around. Mm-hmm. So interesting to listen to Elisha on that. But on ease of doing business overall, I think it's absolute must. What I am happy about is that in the last 3-4 years, it has become a topic of discussion, right? I mean, it was first positioned by the government and then the state started to pick on it. And then we have seen the improvement. So I'm just happy that we have recognized it as a very important issue and that the governments at the central and the state levels are working very hard towards it. And it's a journey. So we have seen the ranking of India improve from 150 to below 100 and hopefully under 50 soon. I think it's a journey. So I'm just glad we are on that direction. We have recognized it as an important issue. And I completely agree with what Mr. Ramashankar was saying, that the labor contracts are going to be, or labor laws are going to be very important because, the economy is not as stable, as predictable as it used to be. I mean, COVID has made it even more volatile or VUCA. So there will be big swings up and down. And if companies are left with big labor forces which they cannot flex, then they will be very averse to take those people on board and then will be much more conservative in their approach. So what we can do by creating labor laws which allow the flexibility is allow companies to bet and take benefit of the upswings and downswings.
Josh, how easy is it for you to do business and how are you navigating the labor laws and contractual concerns?
I think I agree with Parag. I think the last few years, there has been a focus in India. All the states have a ranking of ease of doing business. And so I think Elisha is right. I think end of the day, when multinational companies, come or Indian companies like DCM invest, ease of doing business is very important, right? Because somebody is coming with the intent to invest, but really to do business in a country, either part of a global value chain or not, right? Now, one thing I've always said about the measure which India is doing today is most of the measures of ease of doing business inside India is for startup, right? So just to joke, I mean, startup in an Indian context is kind of like engagement to marriage, time frame where everything is peachy, right? And you're in your best behavior and whatnot, right? But what matters, you ask Ram or you ask Parag or you ask Shekhar, they'll tell you is like, how does this look like married with children, right? When you have running operations going on. And I can tell you from experience in the last year and a half of COVID, the government support has been fabulous. I mean, outstanding. And I will say this in any global platform, because now all the countries around the world are impacted now. But India has been running, just like Mexico or Brazil, 15 months of COVID, nonstop. Somebody thought in between that there was no COVID, but we never stopped any of our safety protocols all through this time, and all through this 15 months of COVID, the government support in the states we operate, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, has been fantastic. The government, I mean, there's the first time I've seen the government working harder than us. I can name names. The government has changed in Tamil Nadu, no change in the support. So I think to me, I really think India has now, during COVID times, the state governments and the central government have taken a step up, in my book, of saying that, companies, like Hella or the Foxconn Group or Bridgestone or DCM, all of these guys are married with children, and we are there to support you and bring essentially the supply chain resiliency, which global value chains expect. And that's it. Doesn't matter who the customer is, Australian customer, a European customer, a nearshore customer within a joint market. It doesn't matter, right? You're able to provide that. And I can tell you, I can name the other countries who are now experiencing COVID. I get a silent salute, from many of my colleagues in other countries, saying that, wow, Josh, now we understand what you have been doing through. And there's a lot of what we as a company have done, my colleagues in the industry have done to safeguard our employees. And there's a lot which the government has done. And I think this partnership is very important. And I really think that India has taken a leg up, in my mind, in the grand scheme of things globally. Back to you, Himanshu.
Thanks, Josh. What you say is fascinating. I normally hear such praise for the government if you are organizing an event and giving a welcoming address to the minister. But what you say is fantastic. Do other panelists agree with this, that the government is doing a fabulous job in supporting operations in the time?
I will just add, I was just thinking when Josh said about India handling COVID, we all knew that our job is difficult because of our population, right? In that, the way government, every time when we face, because the crisis has been turning in our country, yes, it is right, at one point of time, everybody felt there's no COVID for India. And our population is very diverse. And the job of companies and government is extremely difficult. Despite that, what we have been able to do, I think the external world did not appreciate it that much. Probably in the second wave, they could appreciate. This, I have seen a major change, even in our counterparts globally. I saw in the first wave, because the whole numbers are lower, and they thought it has been, by chance we have won that. But the second wave saw how the whole country came together, both private sector and government. I think unprecedented. India, I think when the crisis comes like this, we all rise to the occasion. So I fully agree with Josh on the COVID handling. And I guess the way we are closer also in terms of the governance and the private sector talking together, whatever in our hand, and accepting where the failures are. No government accepts the failures, but on a daily basis in our private chats, in our group chats, they were able to say what is working, what is not working, so that private sector also can support. So I think overall it was well handled, and I will also agree with Josh. At the same time, also the private sector, what we did to safeguard our people was consistent. It was not just going away when the citizens felt COVID is not there. There also I agree with Josh. Yes, Himanshu.
Okay, thanks. Any other panelists want to agree or disagree with this? Okay. So let's turn to sustainability. That's been a very hot topic. Just a few years ago, many believed it's a long distance dream. I don't know whether climate change is really happening or not. If it is, can the world do anything about it? But things seems to be pretty much on track now. You have a US president who is strongly supporting all initiatives. against climate change. IEA, the International Energy Agency, said we do not need any new investment in oil and gas projects if you want to be net zero in emissions by 2050. And many experts feel, and I agree with them, that this is going to be a defining thing for competitivity, for being competitive, for the way manufacturing goes forward. I'd like to hear our panelists' view on this. How much of a challenge or opportunity this is for investments in India? Shekhar, you want to start with it?
Yeah. So, sustainability is something which, a couple of years back or many years back, people were looking at it as something which, those large corporations who can afford to, be on that path. That used to be the kind of a discussion used to have. And I think in last couple of years, or maybe it has moved to a different level. And I think that is very encouraging. Today, it is not that sustainability is an option. And sustainability is a part of your business process. And it is not only manufacturing operation, but entire business process. You will have to look at what all I can do to ensure that my operations, my business is run on a sustainable way. So that has become because the earlier days, people used to talk of that, whether if I go by those kind of, whether it is energy, green energy, or whether it is, any of the operating parameters, whether it will increase my cost. And that used to be a kind of a burden on the companies. But today, very clearly, that is not considered as a cost. And most of the companies, the large progressive organizations, are actually investing huge amount of money directly and indirectly to ensure that their operation, their business is in a sustainable way. All the new projects, when we are envisaging or this thing, we have to ensure that it is basically you are going by the most sustainable ways possible doing this thing. Is it a challenge? It is a challenge, because in a competitive scenario, sometimes you feel that whether my way of working is something which is in a certain manner, where there is some competition somewhere is not working with those manners. But I think that is a time where we have to, as a leaders in the business, we have to stand very firm, and we have to ensure that we continue to work with this, because at the end of the day, finally, only the sustainable ways of doing business are going to win. So this may be a challenging time for some companies, but definitely it's an opportunity to relook at your business, to relook at your business model, and make it ready for next couple of decades to come in.
Okay. Yeah, it is an opportunity. It's a time to relook, and as you rightly said, it's not an option, it is a compulsion. So in a sense, we've got a double reboot, one from COVID and one from sustainability. Parag, what do you think?
Interesting. So first of all, I think sustainability is a game changer. It can be a game changer. And as an economy, as a country, we cannot afford to say that we will take the same development path that some of the more advanced economies took, right? So we have to do it better. We have to leapfrog some of the harmful stages and go to the final stage. So that's the first thing. But I'd like to bring an interesting aspect on sustainability. One thing, it is about using the right fuels and not harming the environment. But I also think sustainability is about cutting waste from the supply chain. So getting more out of the same input. And this digitization and the servitization, which Elisha talked about right at the beginning, I think these two trends are supporting sustainability. And let me give you an example, a practical example of how it plays out in our case, in our business, for example. So, we make tires, and tires are made out of rubber largely, which is renewable. So that's not an issue. But end-of-life tires are a challenge, because they fill landfill sites. At the same time, the design of tires also has a big impact on the fuel consumption, right? But now, due to digital technology available, which means sensors that are available, which are fitted in cars, which are fitted in tires, we can come up with business models wherein we ask our customers to hand over the management of tires to us, because we have the expertise in that. And we don't sell them tires. We say we will charge you by the kilometer that you run. So that is the servitization business model. But as a result of that, with the same set of tires, we are able to get much more distance, first of all. So we use less products for achieving the end result. Secondly, the fuel consumption, because of all the data that we are gathering through the sensors in the cars and in the tires, we can optimize the fuel consumption. And we have seen as much as 7 to 10% improvement in the fuel consumption. So by using the digital technology, by designing a business model which makes it interesting for both parties, we're able to improve the fuel consumption and we are able to improve the life of the tires, thereby reduce the impact on the environment in 2 ways. So this is a very clear example where it's a win-win situation. The consumer benefits, the environment benefits, and the corporate benefits. And there are many such, I'm sure, in multiple industries. And I think that is the main change. If you think we have to do investments in sustainability just because it's politically correct to do that, it's not going to fly. But as soon as it starts to make business sense for all parties, then sustainability will become a central agenda on its own.
Yeah, I think there is this transformation happening from being a good corporate doing sustainability, from not having a choice. I mean, you simply have to do it. There's even some talk about you might not be able to sell your products abroad if you are not abiding by many sustainable practices.
So, I will just add what Parag said. This year we got leadership change and sustainability is back on the agenda for the global. This is a great gift in this tough time. But I think important is the leadership commitment, either at the government level or at the private sector, the leadership level. So just to give you an example of Hela, that we just announced amid pandemic, when we all are struggling, that by 2025, Hela, 38 plants we have, 3 in India, will go climate neutral. So the CO2 neutrality, a bold statement from our global CEO, and we started working. Also in India, we started investing in that direction. And I think it comes from a long-term vision. Also, as Parag said, it makes a business case today. So today, your customers value that. Within automotive, definitely. Our customers, because we supply B2B and B2C, B2C may not be that much sensitive now, but B2B, our customers are demanding it now. So when customers start demanding you that where you produce, is it carbon neutral? And another bold statement our CEO made was the 2050, the whole supply chain we are going to make CO2 neutral, which is a bigger task because you have tier 2, tier 3, they are really struggling for their meeting the means and the ends. And we will support them then. That the whole, then we see our products, what we supply is carbon neutral. And this is from the manufacturing side. I'll tell you from the product side, as Parag was telling, sustainability or social development goals are not only for lip service, for politically correct or for page 3. These are, you can actually create social entrepreneurship out of it. We have done that in India. A very good example I must share here, that in India, we lose every 4 minutes 1 person on road crash or road accidents. Now, sustainability is not only about environment and pollution. It's also about losing people. And you know how many people we have lost? Every day, 3,700 people die on roads. Road transportation is such a crucial thing in our life, but it is killing much more than COVID, almost a COVID every year. Now, in India itself, millions of us use road and 415 people does not get back home every day. Nowhere India, every year we lose 1 city already. Due to emission, we will lose later. But today, as of today, we are losing a city, 150,000 people every year. Now, there also we need leadership and political commitment. So at Hela, what we did, the whole company vision we built around it. We said technology of tomorrow for the life of today. We have built India's largest platform of awareness there. And we built that as a social entrepreneurship. The purpose of the company, we built around it. In fact, we did more like a business model innovation. And today our customers gave us order because of that. And we proved that there's a business case. If you remember today, Tata Motors and Mahindra have a 5-star rated car, for safety, for crash proofing. But the buying behavior of consumer is still not there. So we have to build that business case. What Parag said, it has to be demanded from business. And for that, in the consumer space, it has to be broad. So it should be cool to have these social factors as a buying behavior. And for that, we all have to work together to bring that in a normal consumer mind space. And that's our work to be done as a movement in our country. I think in Western country, it has taken off. In India also, though people say we are still a developing country, but on that front, we can go our development much faster than the whole world. And that lies again responsibility with all of us.
Okay, good point. Elisha, one of the panelists referred to your point about digitization and how use of technology and digitization can lead to efficiencies and therefore sustainability. How do you react to this?
Oh, look, I love the tire example. I'm seeing that worldwide across even fast-moving consumer good companies. You could only imagine what everyone's got in store to sort of enable their business models to do more and have that double benefit effect, which is what you were saying there, Parag, around getting efficiency, cost reduction, changing their business model, all while helping the environment. And that's sort of that multi-prong approach that you want to sort of land on. How software or digitization can enable that is really, again, being able to monitor and start to take the data from the end-to-end supply chain. So whether that's, looking at everything that's like outsourced, whether that's looking at the raw materials all the way through to last mile logistics, product usage, returns and recycling process. So kind of that end-to-end from design to decommission. The more data points you have, the more areas that you can see that you can improve on efficiencies and sort of a low carbon economy, or what people are calling, the circular economy. And people aren't stopping there, right? It's not just about product life cycle, designing products that are, biodegradable, recycling processes, all of those wonderful things. But we're seeing that when you embed that into, ESG factors, whether it's environmental or social, corporate governance, we're seeing, these companies across the board are getting higher stock returns. The investment is geared towards that from a lot of the major banks, worldwide. So we're seeing that sustainability is a transition risk per se, but it's also a huge enabler to sort of pivot into innovation, work with partners, such as smaller, technology companies or startups that have a unique, solution or a piece of the puzzle to solve some of these issues for you. And then that comes into a network effect later of being able to pivot in new ways and new revenue streams that weren't imaginable, before. So I think putting a positive spin on things is always really, really helpful. So I concur with, both panelists talking about this topic, and I'm certainly passionate about this area and helping a lot of customers, drive forward to see their options. But it is about assessing where you are current state at the moment, and then looking to see what data points you can actually retrieve in to make informed decisions for the future prospects.
Okay.
No, I will agree with Elisha, and a very interesting example I'll give what she just mentioned. For the time being, it will not make a business sense on a short-term, view. But over time, it does. And we have a very good example on Indian context. If you travel on Indian roads, you will see the trucks and the tailgating crashes happens quite a lot. Cars just go inside the trucks, and the trucks does not have the tail lights. One of the reasons is the technology there, and everybody was paying just 200, 300 rupees. And we took to drive the market, and we built a full LEDification there because you get 4 meter extra distance. You can save people. Of course, the power consumption comes down by 80%, but there was no taker. The company was on the brinks of becoming red. We were a BIFR company. We were again going to be BIFR. In 2012, we launched it. Our CEO came here, global CEO, and I was under tremendous pressure. Then when no OEMs actually supported us at that point of time, we took the route of fleets. And we did the hard work, and BRL and all these large fleets, they saw the sense there because for them, there was a sense. They don't have to change the bulbs, and then they get the payback on total cost of operation. Now, what Parag was trying to tell in tires also. Now, these fleets then put kind of a pressure or testimonials to OEMs. Today, every truck on Indian market which will come only with LEDification. Of course, we are leading the market, but at one point of time, we were on the verge of going back to bankruptcy. So okay. I know it's a difficult path.
Okay. Another interesting point that came up in this discussion on sustainability was managing waste. And I think that's quite important. There are people who say if you factor in the wastage and waste disposal in a solar panel or batteries or various electronics, that needs to be accounted in sustainable business. Josh, I'd like your views on this.
So I think ESG or sustainability is part of the package in electronics industry for many years. I mean, I'd say even decades, because it's sort of it's almost hygiene. When you talk about lead-free, this industry went to lead-free decades ago. The waste recycling of e-waste is a very, very old process. Even when I came back to India, 15, 16 years ago, it was very easy for us to just identify the right companies to do this recycling. So whether you label it as ESG or not, I think in the electronic space, it is almost the hygiene factor, right? But what I want to say is that if India wants to be a global hub, you have to be responsible, and I think this is not just us as a company. Yes, we are a multinational company. Yes, we are bound, but it's across the whole supply chain. Everybody has to behave it because I think it's the right thing to do. So my views really, Himanshu, are number one, it's the mindset. I think it's forget about ESG and all those things, right? All the brownie points you get. I think it's really that this is the right thing to do. Okay. Number two, you need to say that is this the right? What kind of footprint do you want to leave? I mean, is it carbon neutral? I mean, there are so many metrics. I'm LEED Platinum certified, whatnot. But what is the kind of footprint you want to leave, right? And really, third thing is that you need to design this into your system. You need to design this into your products. When you do your tear down of a bill of material, is this recyclable, right? And I think it starts there. Your processes, are your processes environmentally compliant, right? We have paint lines. And all these paint lines, where are you releasing these effluents into? So no, you don't release them inside. You have a proper investment in the recycling bit. So I really think we, as India, takes this really the journey of the century to becoming a global hub. I really think ESG is going to be very important, and it's not just for large companies like us who are in this panel here, but I think also for the tier 2s and tier 3s as well. And we have to help them, through this process. Back to you, Himanshu.
Thanks, Josh. All of you have given us very interesting thoughts on the way forward for sustainability.
Himanshu, give me 30 seconds just to add what Josh said, another perspective on that.
30 seconds,
right things,
30 seconds.
Only 30. When you do the right things, the biggest stakeholder in your companies are your employees and teams. They love it. And the engagement is so high. Today, we are one of the great places to work, top 25 manufacturing company. I think one of the reasons is we took that call. And the employees understand it. They're well informed. We are all young India today, and they all know what is the right things. Okay. So you get a very high on employee engagement.
Great. That's another great example. I wish time-wise our own discussion was sustainable, but it is not. I must thank all of you for your very frank and insightful views and insights into the topic. I'll hand it back to Ivan.
Thank you, Himanshu.
Well, such a wonderful manufacturing roundtable. That concludes this manufacturing roundtable titled Rising India, is this the best time ever to be in India? A big thank you once again to all the members of this roundtable, Josh Fouger, Parag Satpute, Ramashankar Pandey, Shekhar, Khanolkar, Elisha Harrington, and Venugopal Arcot for taking time off their busy schedules and joining us at this roundtable. It was great to listen and learn from these bright minds and influential leaders when they talked about transforming organizations to achieve resilience, authenticity, and help one reach the stage of customer delight despite all the challenges that we face. I am sure we are leaving with some important takeaways. A big thank you to all of us for joining us at this roundtable. Have a good day. Stay safe. God bless.